From the highway, we turn left and enter into Sno Valley. We will pass the village, and to the right, before entering the village of Sno, we will see an amazing sight, images carved in enormous stones. This is an open-air museum. The monuments of well-known figures and characters from legends are carved successively. Their author is the well-known sculptor Merab Piranishvili. To this day, he continues to carve stone and create unique artwork. A little bit further, and we will enter the village Sno, which is located 8 kilometers from Stepantsminda and is 1,760 meters above sea level. Here, we will see the beautiful fortress of Sno. Its construction was requested by Shiola Gudushaori from the Dukes of Aragvi. The following is a legend about the fortress of Sno.
Once during the Legians invasions, the Mohavians fortified themselves inside the fortress of Sno. The battle did not cease for a week. The gunmen of the fortress of Sno ran out of gunpowder, and they stopped fighting. The guardians of the Asha fortress asked Amovan Ashavjani, please deliver gunpowder, for the people of Sno in exchange for the community will be in your debt. The women from where your line will never remain unmarried, and the table will always be spread for your descendants. In other words, no one will be able to reject a woman from their descendants as a wife, and they would always be welcome to their feast. Amovan, dressed in Liskin clothing, managed to deliver the gunpowder to the guardians of the fortress Sno, whom, with the new resources, were able to defeat the enemy.
60% of the houses in the village of Sno are built in accordance with old traditions, and if you look through the streets, you will see an exciting scene, as if the architecture of the village brings you a century back. Patriarch Ilya II is from the village of Sno, too. A spectacular view lies between Mount Kazbeki and Sno. There are various legends about Sno and its residents. We leave the village Sno and continue our route through the valley. There is a turn before reaching the village, Ahaltsiche, and by the road which is alongside the mountain route, you enter the valley of Artkmo, where we meet a small waterfall. This valley is abandoned, and the village Artkmo is only the ruins of houses, where sometimes shepherds stay. Let's go back and cross the bridge. In the village of Ahaltsiche, there is a beautiful basilica church named after the Mother of God. On the other side of Ahaltsiche, at 1,880 meters above sea level, there is the village of Koselta, where lives a lone resident come winter and summer. We follow the road and we meet Karkucha village, which has various ancient stories. A resident of the village, Bacha Marsagishvili, tells us.
In general, our valley and our fathers were brave people. They protected our lands. I do not know their story now, and I cannot tell you anything about it, but I know the story of our village, and I will tell it to you. Our predecessors were brave people. There were 100 families. They had 58,000 to 60,000 sheep. It was a worse period than it is now. In the summer, sheep were fed here, not only in our mountains. There were 17 owners of the sheep during the winter. Some had 6,000 sheep, some had 7, some had 5, some 2, and others 15,000. In Karkucha, the height of the snow during the winter was 1.5 meters, and they could not leave the sheep there to die. There were deals, some casualties, in such a way they moved to their villages. Our villagers went to the other side of Tirgi River to Karkucha. Shepherds rented some places of the village in such a way that they came to winter grasslands of Kizlari in Dagestan, where in the end our people kept sheep during the winter time. In those countries, they used to go by fighting. There were wild people during that time. Then the Soviets came. They beat the shepherds, took their sheep, their horses, donkeys, and even their dogs. With the sheep from Karkucha, they established a collective farm. All the countrymen were forced to give away their personal property to work in the cooperatives created from their own stolen property by the Soviet government. The way of the winter grasslands led to the Vladikavkaz and Grozny. Later, they moved it from the city to the villages and fields and assigned police. At night, geese would attack. The shepherds were armed to keep the sheep from them. They used to kidnap 1,500, 700 sheep. Our fathers were great. Our Karkucha is a village with extreme elements. It would snow 1.5 meters during the winter. Avalanches would come down in different places. In 1939, 5 people were covered by an avalanche, and 3 of them died. And January 20th, 1954, an avalanche came down on the office of the village. In 1956, it fell on the village Kutra. On the 16th of February, it covered the entire village. 7 people were killed. There were children among them. It was a big disaster. Then an avalanche came down to the village, which was located above. There was only one lady. Her name was Maro, and she died too. I was digging in the snow too. I was not a little child. Then the avalanches congested the river of Tirgi, and it was becoming like a lake. It was filled and moved out of the riverbed. Flooded walls were built slowly. They were not in ancient times, and so much water was rushing into the village. It was breaking down the doors and the windows, and the water was rising up to the ceiling. It killed cattle, sheep, and poultry. We used to go up to the mountain, and we were sitting there in the freezing and the snow in that winter. But we did not give up. Nowadays, we are only 16 families left, and we are not going anywhere. There are avalanches and floods nowadays too, but we do not go anywhere. We will probably die here, where our fathers were buried. We will be buried too.
There is a private museum in Karkucha village, which was founded by Valiko Marsagishvili. It seems that he had collected old items from the residents of Karkucha village and samples from handicrafts as well. This museum is open only in the summer. We move out from Karkucha, and here we meet the small old village, Kutra, which was mentioned by Macha Marsagishvili in his works. If we continue on the road, at 2,200 meters above sea level, 20 kilometers from Stepansminda, we arrive at the village of Juta, with its beautiful cliffs. Here, the main part of the population are Khevsurians, in particular, Arabuls. Besides the beautiful cliffs, there is a lake and the transitional road to the village Roshka, going through the mountain pass. It is quite a popular route for tourists, and especially for hikers. The following story took place in Juta.
At around the beginning of the 19th century, one young man lived in Juta. He was good-looking. He was the only son in the family. He was named Mindia. His family was composed by his sister, his mother, his wife, from Rushka, named Leila, who was a beautiful lady, in order to bring hay from the mountains. It turns out that the residents of Juta would wait for the first snow to fall. Apparently, it was easier to slide the hay down. Mindia asked guys from the same age to help him bring down the hay. The young men told him that the weather was unreliable, but Mindia persisted, and they could not go against his request, so they followed him. Soon the weather became terrible, so terrible that an avalanche came down, struck the men. The whole village went out to help. They were able to rescue everyone, but for Mindia, their search over several days was in vain. The village and the family started to mourn. The family including the pregnant wife, were left alone. The poor mother barely made it to the 40th day and died on the day. The sister who witnessed this had a heart attack and died also, leaving Layla all alone. The poor woman gave birth to a son. After some time passed, her son became sick, and the woman, who was devastated with sorrow, was not able to save him either. In the spring, they found the body of Mindia. Layla did everything according to the customs. She lit candles every Saturday and invited the village at her table to say memorial toast. An old uncle of Mindia sent a notification to the people of Roshka to come take your daughter with you. She has retained her dignity until now, and I do not want anyone to abuse her. Layla did not follow her father. She promised that she would go there in autumn. She knew that if she would follow, they would marry her again, and she would consider it a betrayal to Mindia. During the harvest period, the villagers finished work early and came back to their homes. They noticed that Layla's scythe and handkerchief near the huge rock. They started to look for her, but no one could find her. Soon, the village realized what had happened. They started to look for her in the water, and they found a woman drowned there. Before her death, Layla dressed her husband's clothing and tied herself with ropes so that her husband's clothing would not be taken by the water. This is how she sacrificed herself from dedication to her husband. The grave of Mindia is still in Juta, at the edge of the old and new graves. His godfather from Tiuleti had carved with his own hands the rock where they had found Layla's scythe and clothes. You can find it at the entrance of the village. A new cross has been erected on it.